All right, folks, welcome back. This is Yankees Unloaded. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. And keeping it rolling on Yankees Unloaded, we have our third straight interview with Bob Nightengale. We're not going to waste any time. You will get to hear our thoughts on this game, the 8-2 win for the Yankees, our thoughts on Jazz Chisholm, and a bunch of other things that because we have a lot we want to discuss. We want to get right over that interview. So here is our interview with Bob Nightengale. All right, folks, joining us on this show, it's Bob Nightengale. Bob, thanks so much for coming on.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Gary.
How's it going? So I've got to get off to the races here because obviously the Yankees they traded for Jazz Chisholm, which some people were happy about and other people said, okay, there's still some question marks there, still some holes, obviously some injury concerns with this Yankees roster. Are there any pieces that Yankees fans should really be looking at that is more than likely, in your opinion, to be actually happening?
Well, I like that. Definitely needs to get some bullpen help. That bullpen has been very shaky at the back end. I'm not sure about a starter. They still have a lot of depth there, and certainly it doesn't make sense getting Blake Snell. They weren't interested in the first time, so I don't think they're interested. This time, even if it's available, I don't think it'd be available. To tell you the truth, and but probably one more bat. If they play Chisholm at third, you'd probably like to get another outfielder.
And as far as that goes, because I saw Chisholm playing at third when he's playing in the infield, right? So they'll probably use that versatility to play in the outfield as well. But who are some names that you would say are out there? Because it's really fascinating to me. I think Jonathan India, I think a lot of people are still wondering if he is still an option for the Yankees. There are definitely some other guys, but are there anybody, out there that, you're thinking, okay, they're looking at this guy, and this guy?
Yeah. I mean, India is a perfect fit. The Reds are kind of falling apart here. I would think that that's a tough one to sell because so popular in the clubhouse, but he's got some value and, it's a seller's market, so why not listen? And there's got guys like Nico Hoerner of the Cubs. He'll be available too. Guys like that, just guys to kind of fit in, because the infield's been a mess there with the LeMahieu and Ursula.
And Bob, good stuff there, but I'll tell you this: I'm not going to let you get away with this tweet now. Okay, I saw Garrett Crochet, what you said about Garrett Crochet, and you said, and what you expect to be his last start with Chicago. Should we be worried as Yankees fans that Garrett Crochet could be on the run to an organization, frankly, that we need to beat?
I don't think so. I still think he goes to Dodgers. And, not to say he can't play the Dodgers in the World Series. We'll see how much he has left in the tank. I mean, the White Sox have been very protective of him. I mean, he's pitched, 2 innings, 4 innings, 3 innings. So a team that gets him, how much does he have left in that tank? So, I mean, certainly valuable the next 2 years. I'm not sure how much he gives a team right now.
Yeah, okay. No, I think he'll end up with the Dodgers as well. I've been saying that to Gary. And this whole thing with the contract extension, before the postseason, I think took most, if not pretty much every team out of it. And it makes sense. I think the Dodgers would be willing to do that. But I wanted to ask you about the bidding war that we heard about Isaac Paredes. Were the Yankees even close to getting him? And when did the Cubs get involved? Because it seemed like no one was talking about the Cubs, and then they just swooped in and got him.
Yeah, I think the Cubs' standpoint was almost like an even swap. They had, Christopher Morel. The Rays loved him. The Cubs kind of fell out of love with him. And they had Paredes from the beginning. They had him signed him as an amateur. So it was almost like, a straight up deal just to help for the future and just kind of giving up on Morel. So I don't think, that the Yankees or Dodgers or anybody else were going to take anything away from the Major League club because this guy is already a Major League player.
And so you're saying that in general for the Yankees, they could be looking at an arm. Are you saying that they would prioritize a starter, or do you think they're really going to put emphasis on getting that back end closer?
Oh, I think definitely reliever, definitely. Maybe they reached out to the, Nationals there. There's still a few closers. They wanted Estevez, and the Phillies stepped up to grab him. So there's still a few guys out there. You still have Tanner Scott for the Marlins available, besides Fairbanks with the with Washington. But in the playoffs, those guys are more valuable because you can use them every single day, and because you have that off day after game 2, off day after game 5. So literally, you can pitch about every single game. Where the starters, the way they're run now, you're only going 4 or 5 innings in these playoff games.
And Bob, what are you hearing as far as the Yankee prospects go? Because there's so many people that don't want to trade so-and-so. And it's really fascinating because you said Morel, and that was obviously just somebody the Rays really liked. Are you getting the feeling there's a certain, like kind of the ceiling of who they'll move, like anybody in particular for the Yankees?
No, even Spencer Jones, the number 1 guy, he's pretty much told the White Sox, hey, to get our hands on Crochet, we'll solely listen on talks to him. The White Sox think they can get him if they wanted him. Now, he hasn't had a real good season, so his value has dropped off in some people's minds. So, no, it's like even the Padres got Adams, the reliever from the Tampa Bay Rays. They give it 3 of their top 11 prospects. It's almost, if your scouting system's that good and farm development is that good, go ahead and move those guys and go find the next batch of guys next year.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily know what we really think about this Yankees farm system. We've definitely been a little more critical than I think other channels have been. And Bob, a lot of people have been describing this market as a seller's market. And as you know, you've been in this game a long time. Brian Cashman does not like that at all. He usually likes to win in terms of value on these trades, but the Yankees have described themselves as a win now team. Do you picture Brian Cashman punting on value and going for a player that's going to allow them to win this year?
Well, I do. I mean, if you had a chance to win the World Series, go for it. I mean, they got plenty of money. They got great scouts and everything else. Whatever prospects you trade away, you can find the next guys to replace them. So, why not do that? Why not trade a Spencer Jones and guys like that if he can help you win right now? A lot of these times the prospects never come back to haunt you. Trade like, the Arizona Diamondbacks a few years ago traded away Paul Goldschmidt. Say, hey, they get this big haul from St. Louis. Well, none of those guys, panned out. You see that so often where these prospects are, big in name and stuff, but they never live up to the hype.
Yeah, everyone's always so terrified. They trade away a prospect. Everyone assumes every time you give someone up, whatever you can envision them possibly becoming, that's who they'll be. That's just the way fans have looked at it. And I've had to convince Jake, over this past year that's not necessarily how this works. So, but it is hard to kind of punt on that.
Yeah, just you don't know what these kids can do. I mean, how many of these guys are top 10 prospects in all of baseball, go up to big leagues and they never do it. The Dodgers had that catcher Cartagena. Everybody was big on him, one of the top 5 prospects in baseball. Now he's not even among their top 10. So it's just hard to figure out with prospects.
Yeah, oh man. Well, I think really the thing is, Bob, I mean, I've gotten used to, we went through on one of our episodes, went through the top 10, all the top 10, prospect lists from the last 15 years for the Yankees. And we came away with really Aaron Judge is the only star that was, birthed from that. I mean, Severino, you could argue, had he not dealt with the injuries, but it really kind of makes you, take a step back and think, okay. And it's hard for me because, I come from a football background where drafting a guy in the first round, you're expected to see him on the field, and these are guys, prospects that you actually like, these are focal points for, but it's different with baseball because you have high A, low A, double A, triple A and all of that. I wanted to ask you here because, again, Jazz, all this stuff, him playing third, it sounds like the way Boone is talking about it is like they didn't want to supplant Torres at second. So should I assume, or, does that make me ignorant? Should I assume that Glaber's not being moved at this deadline?
Yeah, that's safe to assume. Just because, hey, he's a valuable guy, and it's hard to trade a major league player for another major league player. We did see that with Philadelphia and Baltimore. But it's rare. Usually always trading for prospects. So no, they plan to keep him at second base, and we'll see what Josh Chisholm can do. I'm not sure the last time he played, third base is. He's been playing center field, a little shaky in center, but very good athlete. and we'll see what he can do. I mean, the Marlins have been trying to trade this guy all year long, and that's been tough for him to do. And, now they finally got a suitor.
That's funny. When you put it
All
that way, it's pretty funny.
We appreciate the honesty. Bob, thank you so much for stopping in with us. We would love to have you anytime, and we hope that you're extremely busy. I know it's always nice to take a break from work, but this is the fun time of doing your job, so we wish you the best of luck.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. You take care. All right, guys, that was our interview with Bob Nightengale. We hope you guys enjoyed. We appreciate Bob for taking the time during a very, very busy time indeed. Very, very interesting day, Gary, because, I was out playing golf early this morning. We were texting, and Isak Paredes, they're in a bidding war. We hear the Yankees and the Dodgers, and all of a sudden
told me the Cubs were selling, and then all of a sudden the Cubs get them.
The Cubs come out of nowhere. Now, I will say, I think they did that more for the long term, because Paredes is under, for whatever, I think it's 4 years of control, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that was why they went that route. Bob mentioned Nico Horner as a potential option for the Yankees. I think Jonathan India is still very much in play. Yandy Diaz is a guy that has not been talked about enough on the show. And, he's definitely, I think, somebody that you and I were talking about off air, that he could help this team and even lead off.
He's a baseball savant's wet dream, Yandy Diaz. The dude rakes. And frankly, we have talked about it. We don't really care defensively what guys are talking about because let's be clear. We've got the worst second baseman, at least defensively, in the entire major leagues. Okay. And it was interesting because we did ask if Gleyber Torres or any of our other guys like Alex Verdugo would possibly be on the move. And he said no, that the Yankees probably aren't even exploring that, which is interesting because calling it interesting would do it a disservice. Yeah. An absolutely blasphemous line from Gleyber Torres earlier today, excuse me.
After the game.
Yeah. After the game. And he was saying, oh, well, Aaron Boone was discussing playing third base for Gleyber Torres. And Gleyber said, yeah, I don't want to play third base.
I'm a second baseman. I play second.
I'm a second baseman. Oh, are you? Gleyber, are you a second baseman? You lead the league in errors. Are you a second baseman? Because you came up as a shortstop. So clearly playing second base should be a much easier defensive assignment there. And I'll say this, Jake. When you're in a position, and Gleyber's been hitting much better of late.
Yeah,
he's hitting about 330 his past 15 games.
They don't win the game yesterday, not today, but yesterday without Gleyber. So
he's made an impact, but that was offensively. Okay, yeah. His impact is with his bat. Now that's an impact that I think all of us expected because 2 of his last 3 years have been excellent offensively. But no one here thought that Gleyber Torres was just going to rock our world with his glove. Never. But I will say this. When you look at the rest of this roster and DJ LeMahieu, I think a lot of us assumed he wasn't going to be a key contributor in his age 36 season after multiple foot injuries. But when the team has a hole at third base and Gleyber Torres, who's not playing second base defensively well at all, is telling you he will not play third base or he just doesn't want to play there at all, what does it tell you about this player? You actually mentioned before, Jake, before we even went live, that everyone talks about Jazz Chisholm and his inability to fit in with a clubhouse and be a team guy. But you've got a player in your locker room who's been here year after year who will not play a position so we can go win a championship. What are we talking about here?
Well, and I'll do you one better. Okay. So I watched the Jazz Chisholm interview, presser after the game. And I say presser, but he's at his locker and they're interviewing him. And they asked him, what he thought. First off, have you ever played third in the major leagues? And he's like, no. And they basically were asking him, and he's like, I'll play any position. He's like, I played center field last year. That was the first time I ever played center field. So this to me is a guy, first off, I could have told you this. I'm going to go out and say this. I covered football for a while. Okay. I still do. And I actually got to speak with this man, Odell Beckham Jr. Okay. He reminds me of Odell because no matter what Jazz does, he has too much fun for the upset, pure fan, right?
For all those people who say they want baseball to grow and all these guys to have fun and live a little, they watch Jazz Chisholm and now their panties are in a bunch. Exactly. Jazz Chisholm today did exactly what you need him to do, which is essentially be league average offensively. He was 1 for 5, nothing special, but he's going to run the bases. Do you remember everyone in our comment section just a few weeks ago? We weren't winning any games,
Yeah.
but people kept talking about the lack of athleticism. It seemed like every guy on the Yankees was failing in the same way over and over again.
The lack of
finally get on the lack of hustle, the inability to score from first on a ball in the gap, just not feeling athletic. And then you see a player in Jazz Chisholm and say, oh, well, he doesn't hit enough for my liking. Well, let me just fill everybody in, because this clearly needs to be said. If Jazz Chisholm, he's in the 99th percentile in terms of base running. If he was a 300 hitter, the New York Yankees would have had to trade Spencer Jones, Jason Dominguez, and all these other guys for him, or Miami wouldn't have wanted to trade him at all. There's a reason he's through the door. He can help us in certain ways. And this team, frankly, we don't need superstars around Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. We need league average bats that can actually fill a job and do a role. He's doing that.
Absolutely. And, going back to the whole Odell point, he's always been called a diva and a locker room cancer. I mean, I've talked to Odell, and I've talked to people that were in that locker room with Odell, and they would literally all deny that. I mean, I think the same thing could be said a little bit different walk of life, but like Carson Wentz. It's not just one particular guy have a lot of fun. The media will point out certain guys and we'll just have a pick on them. And Jazz is one of those guys. Jim Bowden liked him, right? Like everyone that like we've talked to so far has said nothing but great things about Jazz. But the media that like the people in the media that are just trying to stir up controversy don't like him. And look, my thing is I saw instantaneously there was a pep to everyone's step today having Jazz in that clubhouse, okay? He was laughing the whole game. They're smiling. Everyone's happy for him. He gets his first hit. Judge is telling him, hey, go and get that ball for us so we can save that for him. That's his first hit as a Yankee.
Yeah.
You could see, I mean, they were with him. He's talking, he's cracking jokes with the first base coach. I mean, he definitely wants to be here. And the presser was really nice to hear because he's talking about how everyone in the Bahamas is a Yankee fan and how the prime minister calls him. And, it's a really cool moment for him. And look, this is a guy who probably would tell you he hasn't been the player that he wanted to be to this point. But I think the thing that is so cool about our interviews, Gary, is that when we had Jim on, like he kind of let us know, like, yeah, he hasn't really been around anybody like this. And we saw it come to fruition today. Just being around Judge, being around Soto, you could see him. He really felt comfortable. And this is somebody who like has been called out for not even talking to his teammates. I didn't see that today. So, yeah, I think.
Well, they told us the Yankees were worried about it, and then the Yankees went and traded for him. How worried were they?
I don't think they were worried.
We called that. They weren't worried. They were just going to send. Yeah, we called it out immediately because people have to remember a lot of these reports sometimes
price.
They can just drive down the price artificially, and it doesn't really work that often, but it's still at work. Agents do this for negotiation to make more money. Happens all the time. Okay. In my opinion, those reports were just nonsense because if those were true, you really think a player who's been hitting, he's been wildly below expectations. Okay. Offensively. And his strength is athleticism and really running the bases, doing the little stuff. And he's a clubhouse cancer. You think a team that wants to win a World Series tried to trade for this player and did, and they believe that? They don't believe that. The New York Yankees know we've got a player. If you're worried about not hustling, you're worried about someone's character, why don't we worry about somebody who's already on our roster in Alex Verdugo? How about that? How about we worry about why we can't hit ground balls under the biggest microscope in baseball? And you can't hustle down to first base. I don't expect you to be Pete Rose every day. That's not realistic. But I can expect some baseline level of effort. And it's just not there for a couple players on this team. And we're not going to have to worry about Jazz Chisholm in that department. So I'm very happy that he's here. He's not the savior. He's not the answer that the Yankees were looking for. He's part of the solution. And I will say something, Jake, that was hilarious. So Jazz Chisholm gets on this roster. JD Davis DFA'd by the New York Yankees. And so interesting because I'm right here looking at a bookmark of Aaron Boone saying, hopefully, this is June 25th, hopefully just a presence, JD Davis, a right-handed presence. Figure it into first base, third base, and the DH mix. So Aaron Boone in June, late June, thought that JD Davis, who was cut by the Oakland Athletics, was going to be a designated hitter. And by the way, he didn't just tell us that blasphemous statement. He actually went out and enacted it. He was a DH hitting fourth for this team. So if you really think that the Yankees, who had JD Davis hitting fourth, got rid of that player, obviously, and replaced him with Jazz Chisholm, and you think this Yankees team didn't get better, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't.
Either.
This Yankees team got a lot better. They still need to get a lot better. That comes with an arm in the bullpen, a big arm that can get swing and misses at the end of a bullpen. And then you need another bat, whether that be Jonathan India, whether it be Diaz out of Tampa. There are a few options that Brian Cashman actually has a few options here. I don't know if I trust him to get it done and do the right thing, but at the very least, those options are on the table. It's there for the taking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, with the whole thing with Chisholm, and I think this needs to be said, give Austin Wells a lot of credit because he gave them the confidence. They did not want to move Agustin Ramirez, and I actually don't think they would have if Wells didn't take up this starting role the way he did.
How good's Austin Wells looked?
Oh, he's one of the best catchers in the league already. I mean, let's just be honest right now. Like, analytically, he's up there with the best of them. The one thing that he has a knock on, okay, the one thing is that he's not throwing guys out like Yadier Molina. That's it. But he's blocking well. Gary, I found the StatCast broadcast today, which I didn't know existed. The ESPN2. I did not have to hear who. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. They literally predicted based on how often a pitcher pitches, throws a certain pitch. They would show where that location on average would be, and they would show the hitter's damage zone for that pitch. It was awesome. It was.
Do you feel like you had a better time watching that than I did, having to listen to the radio broadcast of W Fan?
Without
my ears bled.
Without a doubt. And I will say this. I love Yes Network. I hope Yes Network at some point adds that, because having that, I'm not like a huge analytic fan, but it was so cool anytime somebody got up there and they would update it. So Ben Rice is at the plate and they're showing Ben Rice's damage zone with the batter's box, right? They're showing Ben Rice's damage zone based on the pitch that they're expecting the pitcher to throw that pitch.
So it gives you a level of expectation. So again, Jake, it does help you figure out what you're going to see, because analytics is the hard part about analytics. And a lot of people listening to our show is they feel like, well, analytics, that's not going to win you games. And that's absolutely true. No question about it. Analytics isn't going to solve the problem. Okay. You can't just analytically go find good baseball players and expect it to just turn into a winning equation. That's not the way the sport works. But when you see analytically, okay, Ben Rice hits 120 on pitches at the top of the strike zone. He hits 340 on balls at the bottom of the strike zone. So what do you think you're going to expect the pitcher? What do you think the pitcher knows? The pitcher's going to work up in the zone. So sometimes, Jake, analytics can help you determine what you're going to see. And so that's something that's part of the reason why the Yes broadcast is mentioned, okay, Ben Rice really struggles at the top of the zone. That's just what the numbers say. That's not really necessarily eye test. Guys are attacking that portion of the zone. There's certain guys like Jazz Chisholm, who we just brought into this lineup, and hopefully we bring in guys like India, and they're more well-rounded offensively. So you can say, okay, analytically, we're a better baseball team. But again, you need to find a happy middle ground between analytics and the eye test. Can we watch the game and see, oh yeah, this is a good player. He can do multiple things to help us win a championship, versus just staring at Baseball Savant and,
by the way,
freaking out.
Baseball Savant, they had all that, because Baseball Savant, all it is it's a encapsulation of StatCast. That's all it is. Right. So all these numbers were being shown for each player. Gary, I'm telling you, ESPN doesn't do many things right anymore. They just don't, especially when it comes to baseball. This should be readily available for everybody, because it changed my experience watching the game. My roommate, who's not into baseball, was like, "That's sick. Where did this come from?" I'm like, I don't know, but I was on YouTube TV and I was gonna watch the game, and I saw that there was an ESPN2 option. And I was like, what is that? Like, I hope it's not like a Manning cast or whatever. Nothing against the Manning cast, but I don't need to see that for baseball. No, it was way better. It was that. And I was super hyped about it. So got to give them a shout out. Now, what I'll say is this in regards to today. Chisholm is going to be a help, no doubt. Verdugo, he had 2 doubles, out of the leadoff spot. He's 9 for his last 23, so he's hitting .391 over his last 6 games. Small sample size, I get it, but I'll take that. Like, right? Like, now he's starting to hit. So
I'll take anything.
I will. So here's the thing, okay? I have the exact time that Chisholm arrived at Fenway at 5:41 p.m. So, like, I didn't care what he did today. I just love that he got in the lineup. And Aaron Boone, like he said, Aaron Boone asked him, do you want to start today? And he's like, of course. And all I'm thinking is, Aaron, do you not understand the assignment? Because I'll tell you right now, Brian Cashman isn't trading away Agustin Ramirez and those guys so Jazz Chisholm can be on a delay and play 5 days from now. They went out and made that move now so they could have him now.
Yeah, we didn't trade. We didn't trade for you, so Trent Grisham could play today. That's not why we did that.
Doesn't work that way.
No, Jazz Chisholm, like fresh off the Delta flight. I don't care when he gets to the stadium. If he's there for first pitch, he plays. Exactly. He's our best option right now. And until you have another option that I can go to that's even at the disposal for Aaron Boone, it's not even a conversation. The best players play. And we haven't won a series. Today was the first time we won a series in I don't know how long, since June. It's ugly. Frankly, our offense needs a shot in the arm. It's not a huge shot in the arm. This is Jazz Chisholm. Jazz Chisholm's a career .245 hitter. We know we're not getting Tony Gwynn. Like, if people think they're going to come to this podcast and I'm going to be like, oh, we've got our savior. No, this is not that. He's a huge upgrade. This is a player with an ops of 726. I just told you guys a couple weeks ago, 6 of our 9 hitters in our lineup had an ops below 700, which is league average. Yeah. So to say that this is an upgrade, it just is. And I understand people saying, well, the Yankees need more firepower. They need more firepower. I totally get it. I totally get it. This deadline's not over, and we will criticize that and our lack of movement after the deadline if nothing's happened, but we haven't gotten to that point yet.
Yeah, and I thought this was interesting. Joel Sherman actually came out with this. So a word you hear a lot about what the Yankees may have to do is get creative. Within the name, Ben Rice has come up quite a bit. Yankees do not want to move Spencer Jones, Lombard Jr., or Rice, but they also don't want to waste seasons that are heir to Gehrig and Ruth. So remember what I brought up the other day? I think it was actually the last episode. I brought up that Rice is kind of playing himself into potentially getting traded. Mm-hmm. I wonder, and I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, if you're trading Ben Rice, you'd rather trade him to the Reds for Jonathan India than trade him to the Rays, where you're going to have to see him. But I mean, I honestly wonder if the Rays would be like, yeah, we'll give you our 32-year-old Yandy Diaz because you're trying to win a World Series, but we want Ben Rice. I would be surprised.
Do you think the Yankees are worried about trading Ben Rice, though, in actuality?
I think they really like him. I do.
Well, no, there's a difference between liking a player and actually being reluctant to trade them. And I don't think the New York Yankees, like I told you before, Ben Rice would not be here if Anthony Rizzo didn't break his arm. Okay. So they like him, no doubt about it. They like all their prospects. Otherwise, they'd get rid of him.
Well, I mean, not wanting to trade doesn't mean they're not going to trade.
Right. But that's my point, is that they don't want to trade any player. So, like, that statement is just an empty statement. Who wants to trade a player? Like, there's no player in your system. You're like, yeah, you know what? We've developed this kid. We just can't wait to trade him. Like, no, you're losing something regardless of who it is.
What I take away from that statement is that Arias and Hampton aren't in there. So, now all of a sudden they have 3 guys. Lombard Jr., it's based on like what I told you. I mean, I heard he was viewed as the 3rd guy in their system. So I guess that checks out. So, I mean, Arias, it feels like that's the guy they're shopping, and Arias can get you something if he's at the top of the package. So,
See, I take it as the opposite. I think if the Yankees tell me they really don't want to trade a player, then I take that as I take it as they want to trade that player. They want you to believe that he's more valuable than what he is. You really think that I'm looking at Ben Rice off the New York Yankees and I'm a team looking to rebuild and I'm like, I'll take that player? No, I there's no way. I watch the Yankees every day. No, they would take him, but there's a difference between taking him and then having him be the headline of a package. If Ben Rice is the headline of your package,
no, he wouldn't be the headline.
Diaz,
he'd be a part.
He's just a throw-in.
Well, I guess it depends on Diaz's market too, because I have no idea where his market is. So what I keep reading is that relievers are going to cost way more than bats.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen that.
We have. I mean, Jason Adam deal is insane.
Crazy.
Absolutely insane.
Yep.
But I think looking at Diaz, I mean, he's 32. He's a rental. It remains to be seen, because if you're bidding against the Dodgers and all of a sudden the Seattle Mariners get in there, and it's like, okay, now I could start to see how you will need a lot more than Rice. But I think Rice and another guy would get that done, 100%.
Yeah, I just don't believe anything they tell me when it comes to, we really don't want to trade Ben Rice.
Well, I don't blame you there.
Really? So if Jonathan India was on the table and they're like, hey, give me this prospect and Ben Rice, you mean to tell me that they're even close to thinking, Ben Rice is a snag, we don't want to get rid of him? Like, because that's what they're saying. They're like, no, we're reluctant. So you got to blow us away. We got to blow you away with a package for Ben Rice? Come on.
Yeah, it is a little weird. I mean, we'll see, obviously, what they end up doing. I think there are definitely quite a few things that they could end up doing. Fairbanks is one of those guys. Finnegan. I don't really like the Finnegan move. So, I mean, we're in the same boat, right? Where, at least like for me, I'm not trying to just go out and get a reliever that throws gas. I want a guy that can get whiffs with breaking balls. You know what I mean? Like, I want something different. I want like an addition, not really just kind of, he's a copy and paste of what you already have. So I
kind of want someone that's actually getting the job done. I don't really care about how someone analytically fits in, because you have to remember.
Well, I agree with that.
The Yankees do stare at, like, a lot of times I look at the radar gun and be like, well, this guy we think we can do something with this player. And like, I respect that. It has to be done in every organization. And to be honest with you, I think the Yankees do that at a higher level than any other team in baseball, which is like finding a project and then getting something out of it. That's great. Because it gives you Jake Cousins. It gives you it gives you depth in your organization in terms of your bullpen, but you still need names at the back end of your bullpen. You can't just put a bunch of schmohawks that you had as a project and say, well, I had this guy who was we were able to get more out of him. It's like, yeah, but do you trust the guy who you've been able to squeeze the lemon on in October? The answer should be no, but the Yankees haven't played it that way. The Yankees haven't spent money in their bullpen. Clay Holmes is going to be a free agent soon. So the Yankees, frankly, have no names in their bullpen that they can trust. I don't want you to tell me a guy's throwing 100. What I care about is when we receive a player, he needs to be piling up numbers. Okay? Because the numbers do matter. You need to be able to go strike guys out. And when we bring in a guy and say, well, hopefully we predict that he can strike guys out. It's like, okay, well, has he been doing that? If the answer is no, it's not a good pickup.
No, that's definitely fair. I think, though, I definitely prioritize stuff over velo, I think, right now.
100%.
So, and I mean, they have guys incoming as well. I don't know where it goes. I have no idea. But Ian Hamilton, early July, they were working on the throwing program with him. I'm convinced, and I'll say this, Ian Hamilton is one of the more important guys in that bullpen. And I don't think he was healthy, because I think when he started to struggle, that was him dealing with that lat injury, and I think that's when they're like, all right, he's not the same guy. We're going to put him on the IL. And sure enough, it ended up coming out the lat issue. He began a throwing program early July, so we'll wait for him. Brubaker, I'm not expecting to see. 3 to 4 weeks, he's going to be shut down. You're running out of time at that point. Then you have Poteet and you have Schmidt, and they're both throwing bullpens. That was as of July 24th. So I think both those guys could be back at the tail end of August. And I mean, the reason I keep bringing these guys up, like Poteet and Schmidt are going to be in the bullpen likely in October. So these guys can also help you out. And they're going to need to figure it out because relievers, as we're learning, are expensive. They might not even have the assets to go out and get everybody they want. So, I'll say this. They're not the only team that needs a reliever. We saw the Red Sox bullpen. They said it today on the broadcast, that StatCap.
Can you believe how bad that was?
Did you see it?
No, I didn't see the actual. No, I'm talking about just overall the eye test of what their bullpen looks like. Can you tell me what the StatCast said?
This will kill you. This is insane. This is the worst month in their bullpen's history since 1987. This is the worst ERA their bullpen has had in a month since 1987. They've never had a worse month since 1987. Isn't that insane? That's absolutely insane. So the Red Sox,
surprising,
they went out and got Danny Jansen. All I'm sitting here like, why didn't you go out and get an arm? You got another catcher? Like, what are we doing?
Well, I mean, we need to, in their defense.
Yeah.
We gave the Yankees the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. The deadline, it's early. The deadline's not over. No, so the Boston Red Sox need an arm. The Baltimore Orioles need an arm. And the later this gets, essentially the more pressure there is on these organizations, because if the Yankees can, like if we wake up tomorrow and Jonathan India is in pinstripes, or if Diaz is in pinstripes, we now know that the Yankees, they're probably the better team once healthy in like a week. Absolutely. Jason Dominguez will be called up in the middle of next month, more than likely. So you're talking about a team that should feel very confident matching up with the Baltimore Orioles, matching up with the Houston Astros, potentially going to see the Philadelphia Phillies. Hell, Jake, we're seeing Philadelphia tomorrow. So when you want to talk about a test, the New York Yankees need to be ready for these tests. The Yankees bullpen right now, in my estimation, in our starting rotation, is not ready for this Philadelphia series. And that is why, Jake, there's such an emphasis on making not one, but multiple moves. One move can be a really good move, and we can be happy about that move, objectively speaking, but it's not done. We're not done. But unfortunately, tomorrow's game is going to be played whether we're ready for that game or not. And of course, we're going to cover those games and we want them to win and surprise us because, to be honest with you, this is baseball. We talked about that Baltimore series that we played earlier this year. None of us, Jake, not either of us expected to win that series. We went out there and pummeled Baltimore. No one thought that was going to happen, and it really kind of saved us for the second half of this year. So I will say I'm holding my breath tomorrow because that Philadelphia team can swing the bat. And Zach Wheeler's on the mound. So we better bring it.
Yeah, it's exciting because, and it's funny. It was a little risky to do it, but I put in the thumbnail, like turning a corner ? And of course, you had the people in the comment section like, we're really going this crazy over one win. But you have to be honest. Isn't
it funny how distracted people get when they watch a podcast? Like if they see one thing that is like, you say turning the corner, you can give them an hour and 30 of content that they would have otherwise, without that comment at the beginning, they would have agreed with 100% and left a peaceful comment below. Because they saw the title, they're like, I can't get with this.
Well, I mean, hey, it happened. We had a podcast that went for an hour and multiple people commented on my tank top. So... Remember?
Or that you cursed. Remember in like the 90th minute of the episode, they're like, really, was that F-bomb necessary?
Yes, it was.
It was. That's how adults talk. Yeah, that's how adults talk. And you watched a 2-hour show and you saw one curse word and just lost it.
Yeah.
I mean, that comes with the territory of being a podcaster. But Jake, in all seriousness, the Yankees need to get better.
They do.
Bullpen.
They do.
They need to get better.
But this is how, we talked about it. There has to be some sort of feeling getting out of Boston. If you're the Yankees right now, like, it's in front of us, all that. No, like it is. Like they need to actually turn the corner now. And this is the best test. You cannot find a better test. No one in the major league is going to give you a better test right now than Philly. This is the barometer. Are you going to show your mettle? Okay, Giancarlo Stanton's back tomorrow. Okay, we've been saying he needs to come back. Oh, you can't blame, not having him on why you were so bad. I'm sorry, you can't. So now he's going to be back, right? Who knows? They might call up Dominguez tomorrow. We don't know. They might. We'll see. But all we know is that you're going to have Jazz and you're going to have Giancarlo in the lineup tomorrow. So the lineup should be better than it's been in the last 2 to 3 months. Maybe, period.
Well, adding Chisholm and Stanton just alone, those are two players, just statistically speaking. Because remember, usually when you see a player with a 700 ops, he's at the very least serviceable with the bat.
Exactly.
The majority of Yankees hitters this year, especially post Giancarlo Stanton injury, have been literally sub 650. Terrible. It's a bad watch. Okay, not good. 2 players are in tomorrow's lineup: Jazz Chisholm, Giancarlo Stanton. Those players well beyond a 700 ops. We essentially added an above average offensive player and a player who surprised us and was really good this year. So do I expect Giancarlo to just hit the ground running? I don't know. I think it wouldn't surprise me if he just hits 0-10 for the next month. But I will say this, at the very least, we have something to look forward to that can happen. But I was watching DJ LeMahieu for a month and a half, and I knew when he came up to the plate, nothing can happen here. Nothing positive. Okay, I'm going to see a slapped ground ball. He's not going to hustle because physically he can't. And he's going to play a decent defensive third base. Giancarlo Stanton, if it goes well, is lacing balls 140 out to the right center gap.
Exactly.
That is what we're paying for. And so I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm just a little frightened about what's going to happen with our arms because, frankly, I mean, there's no reason for us to predict the Yankees starting pitching is going to mow down in this series. I just can't give you guys that prediction because the Yankees haven't made the moves for me to go that direction.
No, and I get that, and I don't think anybody should be predicting that because, I mean, end of the day, you know, it's the best team in baseball right now. So, you know, you can't sit there and just be like, yeah, you know, I think we're going to go in and we're just going to knock the Phillies block off. It doesn't work that way.
We want to.
I would love to see it, you know, but it doesn't always work that way. So I'm going to say this, kind of to wrap it up, wanted to hit on a name that I think, because what was interesting is Bob mentioned how they're looking at outfielders now as well. So it might not just be infielders and just getting a bat. And I actually have a name that I think would be to throw into the pool, right? Have you seen Brenton Doyle this year?
Nope.
Look up his Savant page. Like, I mean, this guy, I really like him.
Okay.
I'm not saying
so out of Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because McMahon is not available. They already said they will not trade him, right? So
do you see he is the best arm in baseball? Number 1.
Yeah.
That's weird. Wow.
Yeah, no, he's like really good. And it's funny because we were talking about Brent. We were talking about Brent Rooker. But Brenton Doyle is not getting any talk. Okay. Doyle,
I have no idea who this is.
Doyle would be, so he'd be in pre-arbitration because he doesn't even have a full year yet. So, I mean, there'd be quite a few years, I believe, of control. I think at least 3. So I don't know if the Rockies would trade him, right? I don't. But if I'm the Yankees, I call them up and ask for Brenton Doyle. Because I'll tell you right now, this guy's 26 years old. He's 6'4", 220, plays a really good center field. His fielding value is 98th percentile. His base running value is 93.
Hey, what's the sprint speed that you see at the bottom?
And his sprint speed is 94.
There you have it.
His arm strength is 100. His arm value is 88. His range is 96. So the reason I bring him up is because, you know, again, like expected batting average is only 263, whatever. I'm not really worried about that. I see somebody that if they were going to go and get another bat, like they could get him. And I mentioned it, you know, with Tommy Edman. You know, I said like, hey, going out and getting somebody that can help in October, be a defensive guy as well. I say I don't care about defense. This guy can also hit. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm prioritizing his defense only. He can help you on the base pass, but this guy's 102 hits this year. He's batting 274. He's got 813 OPS.
Jake, who's he replacing? Can you answer that for me?
Right now?
Yep.
So right now, I mean,
there's one name.
Well, it would be Verdugo.
Thank you. So Alex Verdugo hasn't hit in 2 months. Okay. He's basically been an agent. He's hitting 007 for about 2 months now. He hasn't done anything. So having said that, when you replace Alex Verdugo and his output of what he's given us the last couple months with literally the bare minimum league average, just give me mediocre. Okay. If Verdugo was even mediocre for the past month, the Yankees would be in first place. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to blame this whole end of the first half on Alex Verdugo, but don't you think that you cost us some games by putting someone in the 4 spot and he's hitting 110? Yeah,
absolutely.
You're not going to win us any games. So I understand when people look at these names, they see Doyle, they say Diaz, they see Chisholm. They say, well, these aren't players that I circled and I go to the stadium to go watch. You're 100% right. You don't go to the stadium to watch these guys. But here's what you do watch. When you see a team of Juan Soto and Aaron Judge and you say, okay, well, they combined, they're going to hit about 80 homers this year. Well, what else can the team do? Can the team run? Can the team field the ball at all? Can the team throw from the outfield? These guys, you have to have the complementary players doing the little things because the team can't just be a bunch of dudes hitting 300 and can't play any defense. It just doesn't work. You need players like, yeah, it would be great, but that's not how baseball works. There's no team in Major League Baseball where you just have a lineup laced of 300 hitters. They don't come around often. You need to find guys who are at the very least serviceable batting average wise. They can slug and they can run. These are called overall baseball players, okay? This is not analytics. This is, I turn on the game and this guy can do more than just one thing. You remember when we used to watch the Yankees? It was like Gary Sanchez, Luke Voigt. You just saw the same player over and over again. They were all trying to hit 32 homers this year, hit 210. They were going to strike out 1,000 times. Yeah, well, don't you think that getting a player that can do the little stuff, this reminds me a lot, actually, Jake, this idea, really good idea by you. Not sure if you came up with it yourself.
I did.
But DJ LeMahieu, remember when we got him? Don't you know DJ LeMahieu wasn't hitting any balls out of the ballpark? Don't we know that? He had no power. He was playing a good defensive second base. He was putting the ball on the ground a lot, and he was hitting the ball hard. So the Yankees said, we think you can fix his launch angle, and long behold, we did, and he was a batting champion twice. This is kind of one of those moves. It's one of those moves that makes you a better baseball team without having to make the sexy pickup and potentially losing your top guys.
Yeah, I don't know why the Rockies would do it. I'm just being honest with you. I wouldn't trade a guy like that. But the thing
we need to turn forced trades on to get this guy.
The thing I always laugh at though is like when people are like, "Well, he's not a big name or whatever." Was Chad Curtis a big name? Was Scott Brocious a big name? Was Chuck Knobloch a big name? I mean, those guys helped you win championships. I'm not saying they were amazing, right? Ruben Sierra, like you don't win titles without guys like that. When they traded for Paul O'Neill, hate to bring it up again, Paul O'Neill was not a superstar when the Yankees got him. Like he really came into his own on the Yankees. He had a couple really good years before he went over to the Yankees with the Reds, but he was not, And by the way, Gary, do you know who traded him away to the Yankees?
Who?
Jim Bowden.
No way.
Yep. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
The full circle moment.
Shout out, Jim.
Isn't that awesome?
Shout out the homie Jim.
Yeah. Yep. That's funny. But yeah. So anyway, my point, we were kind of just joking about this off air, how the Lakers were like, yeah, we got Karl Malone and Gary Payton. We just got them when they were 80 years old. Right. Or like the Yankees. No, it started when you brought up the 2019 team and how they didn't pay Troy Tulowitzki when he was a star. They waited until he was washed up.
They waited for him to be a fossil.
Yeah, let's go and get Troy Tulowitzki in 2019.
They're like, Troy can't feel his knees or his shoulder. Let's bring him in.
So I guess that's what I'm getting at. Like, if you have a big name, that's great and all, but what does that really get you? There's going to be guys. We have to understand something, okay? There are going to be newcomers in this league that are, not big names, right? I mean, Brenton Doyle is going to be a star if he keeps this up. If
these numbers have any consistency at all, then yeah, it's a great player. So it just remains to be seen if that's the case.
And I mean, I don't really know what a big name is, because if you talk to like a casual fan, do they even know who Alec Boehm is? I mean, he's going to be a huge piece to this.
I mean, I would say they probably do, but let me ask you this. When you say that Doyle wouldn't even be probably traded by Colorado, would you have expected the Miami Marlins to be like, yeah, we don't have any use for Arias? Why would you do that?
No, I have no idea why the hell they traded
Why
him.
would you trade him? If he's the best pure hitter in the sport, why would you get rid of him?
So I don't. Well, and then what's funny is they got more for Puck than either of those two.
So nothing should surprise you. People are like, oh, the Rockies would never do anything like that. The Reds would never do anything. They wouldn't give up India without getting Spencer Jones.
I mean, the Marlins traded away the NL MVP in Stan to the Yankees.
They got rid of Miguel Cabrera to the Detroit Tigers. You think that these teams won't trade away a player that a lot of us don't even know? Brenton Doyle, the average baseball fan has no idea who that is. And rightfully so. I never heard of him either. Okay. I don't expect Yankees fans. We have busy lives. I don't expect them to be watching this kid out of Shepherd University. Okay. In Colorado, who's not winning any baseball games. Okay. No. I don't expect that. But to sit here and think that just because guys they're having a really good season, they have a ton of potential, that these contenders don't have any chance to get them. Oh, they do, Jake. And there's a reason these teams are bad every year. It's because they make moves like this. They give up talent, and hopefully the Yankees are a beneficiary of that.
I'm just saying the Rockies should not trade him. Like,
no, absolutely not.
If I don't know what you're building. What are you building if you're like, McMahon, we're going to draw the line here, but we'll trade Brett. Like, keep them both. It's kind of like when the Pirates were trying to trade, what's his name? Reynolds. And I was like, why is Reynolds available? Let me ask you that. Why was Reynolds ever available? I never bought it for a second, so yeah, it's a whole big thing. But yeah, tomorrow, guys, just so you know, the game is going to be on MLB Network, also on Prime Video if you have it. Prime Video will get you the Yes coverage. MLB Network, I imagine, will have their own broadcast team. So
it would also be on Stream East. That's where I'll be.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, just in case anyone gets mad.
Luis Heel taking on Zach Wheeler. Heel is 10-5 with a 3.10 ERA, 1.08 WHIP. He's pitched 107 and a third innings pitched, 66 hits, 124 strikeouts, 50 walks, and 9 homers. Zach Wheeler takes the hill against him, 10-4, 2.55 ERA, 0.98 WHIP, 123.2 innings pitched, 84 hits, 133 strikeouts, 37 walks, 11 homers. If we're being honest, that's one of the best matchups we've seen pitching-wise all year.
Pretty good.
I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Bryce Harper, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Alec Boehm. There's plenty of guys. Obviously, the Phillies have so many stars and everything. I could go down the list, but Yankees are vying for their 63rd win. We'll see if they get it. They are. They're not going to be at the stadium, by the way. I want to make that. Very clear.
I can't believe you just told me they have 63 wins. They had 50 wins like 2 months ago.
Oh, I know. They're vying for their 63rd win. They have 62.
Oh my gosh.
But all jokes aside, the Phillies have 65.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird year where no one wants to emerge. The Phillies by default just look like the best team. They do. They've had some injuries, but they've overcome them. That's why you can't blame everything on injuries. Phillies are 38-18 at home. The Yankees are 35-22 on the road. So, yeah, we're gonna see. That's gonna do it for us, though. Really appreciate you guys. We're flying up the ranks. 1,800 subscribers and counting. We'll be at 2,000 before you know it, and that's thanks to you guys. So we really do appreciate that. We'll try to keep the interviews rolling, because that's always fun. But yeah, a lot of fun, good win, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
And like this video.